A new documentary short premiering tonight on MSNBC explores the 2018 recall of California Judge Aaron Persky, who lost his bench after handing down a sentence deemed too lenient by many in the infamous sexual assault case involving Stanford swimmer Brock Turner. While Santa Clara voters recalled Judge Persky by a 23-point margin, questions still linger about the effect of his ouster on criminal sentencing. Here's a scene from The Recall Reframed.
The judge in this case had the legal right to make the decision that he made. I think that it was the wrong decision, but the law allowed him to make that decision. What if that judge is deciding whether these abortion regulations are lawful? And the judge is in a place where a lot of people don't like abortion. Do you want the judge to say, I'm living in Kansas, and so I know what people here think, so I'm going to do what they want? You want the judge to follow the law.
Joining me now is Harvard Law lecturer and Emmy-nominated director of The Recall Reframed, Rebecca Richmond Cohen. Rebecca, thank you for coming to the Sunday show. What drew you to this story, and why did you want to explore the recall election of Judge Persky?
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Yeah, this film felt like an important opportunity to correct a media narrative that had gone wrong. At the time, activists were outraged about the lenient sentence, about the prevalence of sexual violence in this country and our woefully inept responses to it. And they were angry about racial disparities in sentencing, that a white privileged college kid would have gotten a different sentence than a person of color or someone who was low income. And I believe all of those things are absolutely right to be outraged about. But I don't think the recall was the right response to it. And what we know now is that in the 6 weeks following the announcement of the recall, sentences increased 30% across the entire state of California. And that did not affect the Brock Turners of the world. That disproportionately affected low income and people of color, the exact people that proponents of the recall were claiming to serve. So I think this is a real moment to step back and reflect and reframe our conversation about what happens when we demand long prison sentences as a response to sexual violence.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that I think you said 6 weeks after that sentencing, judges began imposing harsher criminal sentences, which we know can disproportionately impact people of color. My question to you is, was that surprising to you?
It wasn't surprising to me, and it wasn't surprising to the public defenders, to the activists, to the legal scholars who spoke out at the time. But it was not the mainstream media narrative. The mainstream media narrative was cut and dry, was this is a case of underpunishment, and that the only way to take rape seriously is by long prison sentences. And I think the work of the racial justice uprisings of 2020 in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder has really changed the window on what's possible to talk about politically, and to imagine a form of justice that does not simply equate long prison sentences with justice or accountability, but instead asks what survivors of sexual violence actually need.
You know, in the intro, we showed that the portion of the documentary where you have that person. I didn't see the ID. Maybe it's a judge, but certainly someone in the legal field talking about, you know, whether judges should be recalled. And there are a lot of legal scholars and professors who disagreed with Judge Persky's lenient sentence of Brock Turner. But they don't agree that judges should be recalled over sentencing decisions. How do you go about portraying that aspect of the case?
Yeah, I think it is reasonable people disagree about the sentence. That's not, the film presents many different perspectives and doesn't take a stand on the sentence one way or the other. The film asks a question about how we channel our outrage and what those effects have, and why we need to step back and take into account why longer prison sentences are not the solution for seeking justice.
Your film also notes the proximity of the 2018 recall to the Me Too movement, even identifying that some viewed the recall election as the first electoral test of the Me Too movement. What do you think Judge Persky's recall illustrates about that time in America?
That's right. I think it was a more difficult time to have a conversation that this country is ready to have now. I think that that at the time that it was just very easy that justice meant many years in prison. And it is a time to have a different conversation, to look with nuance and to look at the complexity of what that case was and what its impacts were.
Rebecca Richmond Cohen, thank you very much for coming to the Sunday Show. And don't forget to set your DVRs to watch The Recall Reframed tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC and streaming on Peacock.